spoke to you, we talked about how we constructed the major scales and which relative minor scales were related to the major scales, and also which scales had how many sharps in and which scales had a number of flats in there. So what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about how we construct the relative chords, triads, or the diatonic chords as they're most well known as, within each of those major scales. So let's take the scale of C. Really easy, no sharps or flats, so it's the easiest one to begin with. And the way we build a triad up is we take the third letter and the fifth letter within the scale of C. So C, D, E, F and G. So they're the fifth, 1, 3 and 5. And there we have the first diatonic chord of C major. And basically we just apply the same all the way up through the scale. So and as you can hear, they're all the major, they're all the diatonic chords that are related to the scale of C major. Let's take another one. Let's take G. Now we know the scale of G major has got a F sharp in there. We know that through the circle of fifths and also through the way that we've worked it out in constructing the scale using the tone, tone, semitone method. So we apply the same principle, the 1, 3 and 5 within the scale. But every time we get up to the F sharp, up to the F, we always sharpen it. Okay, so you can see how that is. They are the diatonic chords that are related to the scale of G major. Now let's take a minor key. So we'll look at the relative minor of F major. So F major has got one flat in there, we already know that, and the relative minor is D minor. So what we do is we apply the same principle, the 1, the 3 and the 5, and go all the way up the scale, and every time we come to the B, we flatten it to a B flat. So they're all the diatonic chords that relate to the scale of D minor. Talked about how chords are made up in a particular major scale, and we're now going to look at how the diatonic chords of the scale and key signature of C major would appear on a piece of musical notepaper. So just a little bit of a heads up, the 5 lines on the score here all represent a note, and the spaces do as well. And when I was at school, I was taught every green bus drives fast, or every good boy deserves football, EGBDF, and in the spaces FACE to spell face. So if we look at the scale of C major, or the key signature of C major, we said that you would take the first note and you'd go up 3 and then 5. So C, E and G would make the first diatonic chord of C. And then it would be D, F and A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E and B, D, F. No sharps or flats, just quite simple. Now these chords are all known by a particular name. So the first chord is known as C, and it's known as C major, C, E and G, because it's a C major chord, C major diatonic chord. The next one, D, F and A, well in the scale or in the key signature of D major, the F is a sharp, but in the key signature of C, the F is naturalised, so we have to know that is a D minor, because we've naturalised, we brought that F sharp down a semitone, so it would be known as a D minor chord. Similarly for the third chord, in the scale of E major, the G is sharpened, so we brought it down a semitone to G because it's naturalised in the scale and in the key signature of C, so it would be known as an E minor. And we go up to F, then a major G, then minor A, because the C sharp would be normally sharp, C would be sharpened in the A major scale, but it's naturalised for here. And the last one is known as B diminished. The seventh triad in any major scale is known as a diminished. I won't explain what diminished means, but just accept that it's called a diminished chord for the time being. And as I say, at a later stage we'll be talking about all the different language that's used in music and how they relate to symbols and chords and scores on any piece of music. Okay, and the way to be able to remember this is if you start with any major scale, if you work up through the triads or all the diatonic chords, you always start with a major. So the first scale or triad would be a major, then we'd have a little 2 and a little 3, so the second and third chord would be minors, then a major, major, then a minor, and then a diminished. Now, similar to the major diatonic chords, or the diatonic chords that relate to a major scale, we have diatonic chords that relate to the relative minor scale. Now, if you look at here, this is the minor scale of F minor, and it's relative to the major scale of A flat major, so therefore it has the 4 flats in there: battle, end and down. So this is the first time you may have seen, we talked about last time the order that flats and sharps appear on a piece of musical notepaper. So battle, ends and down. So similarly to the way that we use the Roman numerals to work out the sequence of the diatonic chords within a major scale, we have the same here. So we know that the first one is going to be a minor, the little bubble or little 0 at the top here means that it's a diminished, and a major, minor, minor, major, major. So we start off with F. So we're talking about the relative key signature of F minor, so it's F A C. So and the A is flattened, so F A flat C. We know that because there's an A flat in the key signature here. So the first chord is actually going to be a minor. So the next one is G, B flat, D. We know it's B flat because we've got B flat here. So it says that anything you play in a B on here will always be flattened. So G, P flat and D flat. It makes it diminished because you flatten the D as well. As I say, we'll fill you in on diminished at a later stage. Then we've got the major scale of, or the major triad of A flat. So we've got A flat, C, E flat. And the reason the E flat and the A flat are flattened is because it says so in the key signature. And then we've got a minor, B flat minor, a C minor, D flat major, and an E flat major. So for every minor scale, you use this sequence of Roman numerals to work out which of the 7 chords within that particular scale are minor and which are major. It's easy, and what I've done is I've put together a grid of all the major scales with all the relative minor scales, both the sharps and the flats and their relative minors, and I've listed the sequence of Roman numerals for all the chords that go in there, and then I've listed them all in, and I've done the same for the minor and also for the flats and also for their relative minors. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means that if I'm writing in a particular key, and I'll take the key of C, if I write a piece of music, I will use all of these chords in any order. Normally if you start on the first chord and end on the first chord, so C and C, it sounds right, and if you always go 5-1, it sounds perfect. So I've just basically put a quick sequence of chords together, and I'll just play that for you on the keyboard and you can see how it works. So the first one is C, then F, then D minor, G, A minor, E minor, and it sounds finished. Okay, and you can see a piece of music for any group that you want to join. They may write it as the Roman numerals across the top with the beats, or as the notes, or as the letters of the chord. Okay, so next week we'll be looking at some major sevenths and some seventh chords, and also looking at scales and the jazz and blues scales. So see you then.